Mic check. Before I start, I want to mention something I completely missed out in my last video about the non-existent Godzilla timeline. I never really talked about Destroy All Monsters, a film I'd like to forget because if my mind wants a big happy timeline, it will need to forget how Godzilla dies in 1995 and then comes back in 1999. I basically said everything I wanted to say about that film anyway, which is nothing. 2025 was okay. I mean, it was a good year, though for cinema it was decent at best. 2020 was the release of that one virus, and then it had the sequel, 2021. 2022 and 2023 were full of masterpieces after masterpieces, and 2024 actually making me want to watch the Oscars, which, if you know me, is very, very surprising because of how strong my hatred is for the Oscars. Nothing really took my fancy in 2025. I started my year in Poland and I watched the Polish dub of the new Bridget Jones' Diary, which with English subtitles, and then watched it again in English. But that was February, so it was a slow start to the year. Then there was a release I was really looking forward to, which was Bong Joon-ho's Mickey 17. Bong Joon-ho has made some crap, though he basically turns everything into gold. And then he made that one film, a foreign film that was actually looked upon fondly at the Oscars, which is very rare. As a big Bong Joon-ho fan, I was so excited. But I found Mickey 17 pretty boring and not really for me. I came out of the film thinking it's his weakest work yet. And the film kind of shaped my thoughts of 2025 as a whole going forward, which is disappointing. 2024 had so much anticipation for the Oscars. There were so many people I cared about who I really wanted to win. It was disappointing, of course, this year. I mean, this year had the comeback of Edgar Wright, Bong Joon-ho, Wes Anderson, but it was so much. It was so much of a me issue that these films don't really do much for me. Sad face. But if here are my standouts of 2025 for films, of course. Madly rushed because I recorded this very late, and then I was way too quiet because I recorded it at 1 a.m. 1 a.m. I should be going to bed right now. And I will. Shit. I have all my work together right now. And now I'm recording it on the day it's supposed to come out. So let's see how well I do. Here's some honorable mentions. The sequel to 28 Days Later, which is 28 years later. I haven't watched the sequel yet. I know that comes out this year. And then there's a complete trilogy that comes out after that. But I thought it was pretty okay. I didn't like it as much as 28 Days Later. I left a really good letterbox review. You're gonna love this. I thought I was in the Netherlands for how many Dutch angles there were. I'm a comedic genius, generally. And then there was Weapons. Weapons was really good. I really liked Weapons. Yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about it. And then wait, no, and then there was the Minecraft movie. Fuck yeah. Okay, this was an absolute masterpiece. Masterclass in um and then there was uh not much. Let's start with Bridget Jones, Man About the Boy. Watch this in the cinema, packed full of horny 50-year-old women, the way the filmmakers intended. Glad to see Hugh Grant still being an absolute slut 24 years later. These are some of the delightful reviews for this film. I think it was one of the most hyped films of this year, maybe being beaten by that one big name later down in this list. In my country, at least, we love Bridget Jones. I would say the book is good, though I'm sorry if you're watching this, I haven't touched the book that I borrowed off you yet. Sorry. Over here in the UK, everyone, I hope, loves Bridget Jones. The first film is a masterclass of comedy and filmmaking. The sequel is controversial, yet charming. The third film is nice and sentimental, and I felt the fourth film was the same. Again, nice and sentimental. Do you address the elephant in the room? Yeah, they killed off Mr. Darcy. So wait, actually no, that makes this some crap. Anyway, let's move on. At number 3, gonna do a top three. Yes, I think that's a good idea. Top three films of 2025. And number three, we had The Phoenician Scheme, Wes Anderson, with a French Deepak, with a French Dispatch and Asteroid City, and maybe even The Wonderful World of Henry Sugar. It felt like Wes Anderson's style became a bit of a parody of himself, if that makes any sense. But this film felt so refreshing and new. It felt like Anderson was just embracing how bizarre his style was instead of trying to make his style feel more than what it actually is, if that too makes any sense. Also, Michael Cera was just the highlight of this film. I saw a little bit of me when I saw him betraying an autistic little weirdo who's obsessed with bugs. I love the way he was kind of a Ringo Starr of the group when he was just in the background doing his own thing, like looking at a dung beetle or talking to himself. He's so cute. I love him. And Richard Ayoade felt like more of a felt more like a mature Moss from the IT crowd, and I adore that. It's possibly the most anticipated film of the year for me, and it definitely didn't disappoint. I feel like I'm rating it a bit too low, but I can understand some criticism I have of the film. I enjoyed this film more than his last one, Decision to Leave, but I think Decision to Leave was produced better and was way more compelling and original. No, to address the elephant in the room. No Other Choice feels heavily inspired by Bong Joon-ho's Parasite, and it feels a bit like a competing film because both Park Chan-Wook and Bong Joon-ho are both incredibly beloved popular Korean directors who make very similar stylistic films. Although I favor Park Chan-Wook a bit more, I do think this film could have been a bit more original in its messaging because of how many powerful films Park Chan-Wook has made in the past. Number one. Finally, we've added colour to superhero films. James Gunn's Superman was a perfect superhero film. This film felt incredibly refreshing from the dull, gritty, taken too seriously superhero films since since people started making DC comic adaptations. It feels most of them are just taking the characters and plots and just spitting on the comics. The Lego Batman movie is one of the only good DC films I can think of that feels like a true love letter to DC. I've not watched an awful lot of them, but I've heard purely negative things from every DC film that comes out. And as much as I do love Nolan's Dark Knight, not Batman Begins and Dark Knight Rises, those suck. I think they are far too gritty for a comic book adaptation about an orphan who dresses up like a bat and fights crime. Same for the Batman. They're missing some of the comical elements of Tim Burton's 1989 Batman that actually feels like a true adaptation, even though I'm not a fan of Tim Burton. DC really hasn't had the best time cinematically. It's not like Marvel where it's owned by Disney and they're just driving it into the ground in their own way. DC sadly lacks identity right now, and I really hope James Gunn is the person to turn that around. This film is an amazing start to what I hope is a cinematic universe. With Supergirl being announced, I have very high hopes. I want a James Gunn Batman so bad. Marvel have never and could never make such a beautiful, stunning, emotionally driven film like this one. Compare this wonderful film to that artificial, force-feeling, ugly slop they have always produced. This is possibly the most well-shot superhero film I have ever seen. I think it's absolutely stunning, and with its set design and wonderful, well-done practical effects. Also, to address another elephant in the room, as Marvel, because Disney just loves to compete with every studio ever. Because right after Superman, a Fantastic Four film came out. Fantastic Four: First Steps, which is the first Fantastic Four film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And to be honest, when I first watched this, I was celebrating. Celebrating the fact that Marvel made a pretty decent film. Honestly, I think it's the best I have seen from that studio, generally. But yeah, it felt so like it was competing with James Gunn's Superman, which is just so much more superior. You can't compete with James Gunn's Superman. You just can't. This film had a few quite marvelly cliche stuff, but they weren't distracting enough. And sometimes the constant background music was a bit much at times, not letting some scenes to breathe. But I don't have an awful lot of negative things to say about this film. The cast was fantastic. Pedro Pascal is slowly healing Marvel. The absolute worst thing I came from this film is that it convinced me to watch the next shitty Avengers film, which honestly I wrote that review ages ago. I might not even watch Doomsday. I can't lie. Doomsday feels so boring. How long is it gonna be? How long will Avengers Doomsday be? Oh my god, you're actually you're taking the piss. You're taking the piss. What do you mean it's going to be 3 hours and 45 minutes long?
I see you shiver with anticipation.
God, I fucking love tea. So good. Like this guy.